Thanks for watching. A couple things I'd like to share with you, some ideas where we'd like to go with the city and the state of the city. So I really appreciate you watching. I'd like to start out by telling you just a long story, but we'll make it real short. When I was in the mayor's office the first time, I walked in the door and Jim Donlin, who at that time was the executive assistant, said, do you know how bad it is? And I said, well, I have an idea. I think we're probably $6 million in debt. He said, well, it's worse than that. He said, I think it's somewhere between $8 and $10 million in debt. We have $2,000 in the checking account, and we've almost missed payroll twice. Well, that was a little startling. And we had called a staff meeting that morning, and I was getting ready to walk into a staff meeting with some people that really didn't care for me to be there. It was the staff of the previous mayor, and I was in the mayor's office because the previous mayor had passed away, so I was taking his staff and going to turn the city around. So when people tell you that Republicans and Democrats can't work together, I don't buy that. I think it's all about leadership. I think it's all about somebody bringing a group together and setting a mission and saying this is what we all need to achieve, and everybody start working together. So I walked into that office and I basically laid out the problem to them, and I said we're going to solve this problem for our countrymen and get us going in the right direction. And short story is, when we walked out, and we were over there 6 months, so when we walked out 6 months later and handed the government off to the new mayor, we had paid the debt down. We had money starting to roll into the checking account to the tune of about $729,000. And the city was in the black and the fund balance was beginning to build. And that's what we did the first time. We decreased the debt from $113 million down to $103. And I could spend all day telling you how we did it. But I'll just give you one idea of what we did. When I first sat down at the table in the conference room, I looked at Larry Sellinger, and I said, and he was the HR director. I said, Larry, how many openings do we have? He said, I believe we have about 70 openings. And I said, not anymore. Because at that time, we had been laying people off, we'd been furloughing people, we'd been making them take a day off without pay. And I'm sitting here thinking, how can we hire these additional people if we can't pay for what we have? Now that sounds elementary, but the city had budgeted for those positions. They'd paid workers' comp on those positions, and they were paying health care on those positions because they never knew when somebody was going to fill them. So the minute we did that, we took all that obligation away from the city. I think it was to the tune of about $4.8 million was just wiped right off the books. So that was just one of the things we did, and we started down that litany. When we got done, we'd raised no taxes and raised no fees, and the slate was clean for the next mayor to come in and start. And Mayor Houston did a great job of holding the line, holding the expenses, and that brings us to today, where we've had taxes raised, we've had massive spending, and so I'd like to talk to you a little bit about economic development, because that is a real concern for our city. There's two parts to economic development. I think I drew it on the chart here, but there's two parts to economic development. And hopefully you've had a chance to look at the Development Consortium letter study that was done in 2017. And what that consortium letter said was, and it was a study that was paid for by both private and public sector, because we want to know about our town. It asked two really important questions. One was, this city's been talking about economic development for a long time. Why haven't you done anything about it? And number two, if you do something about economic development, who's going to take the lead on that? The study goes on to talk about the problems we have, and we'll get into a little bit of that and what the city needs to do to support economic development. The reason I bring up economic development, because it's so important to our city, because we've lost about 3,400 people, we've lost 600 jobs, costs continue to rise, and if we continue to lose people and don't have jobs, it's going to get worse. So the private sector and the public sector have joined, and they formed the Lincoln Land Economic Development Corporation. Turn it over to the professionals. Let them sell our city. The part the city has to play in this is we have to do things that will make our city advantageous for a business to come in here. Now that may sound easy, but let me give you an example. I have a friend of mine that told me the other day, he said, if my company moved, and his company is in Springfield, it has over 1 million square feet under roof, just this one thing. He told me, he said, if my company moves outside the city limits, 20 miles, 10 miles, 5 miles outside the city limits, I will save $3 million in electric rate. So we're sitting in this meeting and the guy next to him says, well, I did that comparison chart on CWLP's website, and I found out if I moved 5 miles from where I'm at outside the city, I would save $220,000 in electric rate. That's a problem. That's a lot of money. So that's one of the things that the city has to do. We'll talk about that. Let me back up just a little bit here on what I just said. The important issue too is on these two parts is this part can't conflict with this part and this part can't conflict with this part. And that's what's been going on in our city today. Everybody's kind of been taking a little piece of the pie and nothing's been getting done. So when we formed this partnership of the Lincoln Land Economic Development Corporation, they're the sole one that we could call as a business and say, what's going on in Springfield and how do we operate? They're going to sell our city. And it's more than just sending out a slick brochure and saying, come to our city. It's a sales presentation that they give to that company. Let's just pretend that we had a company and we're the board of directors and we're looking at a map and we draw a circle on the map and we say, this is where we want to build. And here it's Springfield, here it's Champaign, here is Bloomington, here's Peoria. We want to be somewhere in that map in manufacturing. It's important to us to be there because of our distribution area. So economic development is trying to sell our city with these other cities. They get a call from our company saying, we'd like to talk to you about your city. Economic development starts telling them the things that we can bring to the table. Well, there's a company out there called Neighborhood Scout. And if you go on their website, they're kind of like a data mining company. They research all the cities across the United States, and they sell that data. So what we would do as a company, we'd call up Neighborhood Scout and say, could we have the information on these 3 cities because we want to be there. And then we as a board can sit there and compare that information. First thing that pops up is crime. This is Springfield. First thing that pops up is we have an index of 4, a crime index. Now, that doesn't mean anything to you because I haven't told you what the scale is. But the scale is 100's the safest, and we're a 4. So would we as a company want to subject our employees to an environment where we're listed as the second leading city in violent crime in Illinois? And we're in the top 25 in the U.S. But here's a data company selling our information that says we have a 4. I'll give you an example. Bloomington Normal has an index of 28. Chatham has an index of 82. The next thing you're going to look at is utility rates, okay? We're a manufacturing company. We use a lot of welders. We use a lot of compressors. We make things. That's why we want to be here, because you got good roads, you got airports, great heartland, great place for distribution. Next thing that pops up is our utility rate. We have one of the highest, if not the highest, in Illinois. And our average is almost double the nation. The nation average for electricity for a megawatt is around 670. So that's about almost 7 cents per kilowatt. What CWLP is charging to our business customers is a little over 12 cents. And that's where you can see that difference I just told you a minute ago about the guy that had the $1 million or the 1 million square feet under roof. And he's paying an additional $3 million more than he should. And if we have a company, those are the kind of things that pays our workers, pays our stockholders back. So if you go up here to Bloomington, theirs is going to be around this national average is 0.67. So you're starting to see what the city needs to do. We need to get our crime under control. That's one thing. We need to get our utilities lowered. That's the second thing. We need to stabilize taxes, because no company wants to come in here when you keep raising taxes on them. And this administration's raised the taxes 4 or 5 different times. They want to have tax stability. We can also look at home values. In the last 4 years, home values have went down because we have more sellers than buyers, because we've lost 3,400 people. And we don't see anybody coming back into our city. So economic development for us is crucial. Tax stabilization, crucial. Lower utility rates, crucial. Get our crime under control, crucial. People ask me why I got in the mayor's race. Well, I'm pretty much laying it out right now. You can see. I'm a small business owner in the community, and I see what we're doing here, and we see that it's not working. And you know, Jim's a nice guy. I like Jim, but he's had 4 years to straighten these problems out, and he hasn't done it. And that's why I'm standing here explaining this to you. We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of things to do, and that's why I'm standing up and running for mayor. So I appreciate you being here and watching this so that I can explain this to you so you have a better understanding of the needs of our city, the jobs we need to bring here, how we can bring the jobs here, and me as a leader who can do it. So I appreciate your attentiveness to watch this. If you want more information, please go to frankedwardsformayor.com. Thank you.